Hello and welcome to the Many Parallels podcast. I am your host Trevor with your other host Zachary Dean and Zach. What the fuck did you want to talk
All
about,
right,
bro?
bro. So we're going to talk about the mind today, yeah?
The mind. What about the mind?
All right.
It's like all pink and fucking
So,
weird looking, bro.
yeah, not the literal mind, but more about what it do. So,
What it do?
So I want to start with something from the Kabbalion, which is like just a book from about like 100 years ago that is
Religious
like
texts or just like
what say again?
religious texts?
No, it was made by a bunch of, I guess, occultists, you could say, that were from the really early 1900s. So, they were living in the late 1800s and then put this work together in the early 1900s of like basically a rehashing of the Hermetica, which is a Greek text, which embodies apparently the studies of Thoth slash Hermes, because I guess they're the same entity or deity. If
I thought the
you
Hermetica was something to do with like fucking essentially medicine and healing and shit.
it does
It is?
involve that,
Okay.
but it's like I guess there's a core set of 7 principles within that, from what I've come to understand, that one specifically triumphs the other 6 beneath it. So it ties in perfectly to the
Is there a
7.
hierarchy of them? Is it like each one is not as important as the last, or is there just one that's over them
Yeah, it's
all?
like a golden rule almost,
Mm.
or not rule, but principle rather. So they go like this, minus the first one, which I'll name last. So correspondence, vibration, polarity, rhythm, cause and effect, and gender. Those are the 6 rules, but the one that triumphs them all is mentalism, which is basically the idea that everything we experience, everything that we're coming in contact with in our waking day, and maybe even when we're asleep in our unconscious state, is like a product of our mind. It's just our mind is essentially, the way I can make it out, is that it's a instrument or something, that like a tool that we, an organ that we have, which is a tool that interfaces with like reality essentially. So what is your thoughts on that? Do you agree, or do you have different thoughts, or
Um, so is it kind of going off of the concept of like Plato's cave type shit, where it's fucking everybody's view is different? Like
yeah,
explain it more
yeah,
detail.
essentially that, something like me and you've kind of discussed before, where like it comes down to if you can agree that the truth is something that you have to connect to, or if it's something that is already with like it's just naturally within you. So like it'll feel right or wrong naturally, or do you have to like understand it and look for it? Get in touch with the truth.
I'm very lost in what you're explain to me like I'm fucking five.
Okay. So essentially there's like subjective truth and then objective truth. If you think
Yes.
it's objective, then the truth is outside of yourself and you're identifying it. But if you think it's subjective, then your truth could be the truth no matter what.
So then what is it that the rule is stating exactly that there is the
Objective
truth?
truth.
Objective truth is a reality, is what it's
Yeah, it's
saying.
not
Okay.
subjective truth. Like it
Okay.
doesn't advocate for subjective truth, because subjective truth is subjective, right?
Yeah, exactly.
It's like it doesn't vary upon the individual. The individual has to figure out what his environment truly is. Basically, you have to really make sense of your environment, and like that leads me to another question, which is what do people need to have a good, like a healthy mind, or to be in proper relation to the things around them? Like how do people work the best in their environment that they're put in at any given time?
What do you mean by work the best? As in, like, how do they take it all in? How do they?
Yeah, like take it all in, or make the most out of any given situation, right? Like you kind of, in my opinion, you kind of have to be not trained exactly, but looking for that. Like you have to be looking for the best in each situation in order to probably get the most out of each situation. You might get the most out of it if you don't care, but your will is going to help that a lot.
So wouldn't that be advocating for subjective truth then? Because the way you view it is going to change how it's perceived to you. So I'm just confused on exactly what this golden rule is saying. What is this shit called? I'm going to
just look up Hermetic principles or 7 Hermetic principles, and it's just mentalism, the law of mentalism or the principle of mentalism. Just that all is mind. That's all it's really saying.
all is mind. Well, then, if all is mind, wouldn't that be saying that there is no?
It's just with the way I understand it, with our mortal bodies, all we have is this instrument in our head that will allow us to coordinate with and move within reality. So, like, you can have a skewed version of that based upon whatever your outlook on life is, perhaps, or, if you, like, let's just say you've always had it really good your whole life, you might not understand all the hardships or the things that people really go through, but that doesn't mean that they're not happening, right? Like, it's that would be your subjective reality, is if you think, well, just because I never went through anything, like, nothing's happening. But it doesn't mean that you have to involve yourself in or care about every situation, but it's just knowledge of I don't know, things happening. What was the question? I don't know. I got off.
I'm just confused by the what the rule is exactly saying. And when I looked it up, it just says
All is mind.
The all is mind, the universe is mental, which makes me think that what it's saying, at least like it doesn't have anything else other than just fucking that what I'm reading right now. But from that phrasing, what I'm taking from that is there isn't necessarily an objective truth because it's all in your head and how you perceive things. It's all up to how your mind interprets these things. At least from that short little fucking saying of the universe
It
is
is
mental.
true. It is how your mind interprets these things, but is your mind interpreting them as the correct way or the incorrect way? So it depends if you believe if there is an incorrect way or not, or like a proper way of understanding things, like, do you fully understand something or do you not? Because if you do, then you know that that's the truth. But if you just think you understand it but you don't, then you could be being fooled. So, like, I think it all is your mind. Whatever your mind is filtering through it from like, reality is like a beam, and then your mind is like filtering that beam of reality. So, like, you just got to get your mind in tune with the beam of reality so that you can be the best in your environment that you could be. I guess that's the best that I understand it. But, like, I don't know. I guess it doesn't really matter if it's objective or subjective. Like, it does, in my opinion, and overall. But for the sake of the argument, I'm trying to think if it really matters if it's one or the other, or if we just agree or disagree that reality is filtered through basically just your mind. Like, it's your eyeballs, but your mind, because you need your brain to, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, depending on, your brain is going to render whatever it takes in. But so I'm still confused on what this is saying, but like the the idea that, it's perceived however the fuck we perceive it.
Yeah.
Well, like I don't know how the fuck they scientifically prove that. You need to turn your fucking volume down. I don't know why this shit keeps going off. How we perceive it. Like, there's some animals that can see colors that we can't.
Right.
And actually, real quick, I think that might be this. But I don't know how the fuck we figured that out. But the fact that that is a thing, it at least means that our brain isn't able to perceive everything. Thus, our perception of the universe could be flawed because it's only whatever our brain is able to take and pick apart and analyze to its current ability.
But are we comparing the experience of a human to the experience of something else?
Well, I'm comparing it for the sake of just.
And are there differences between them, right? Like,
yes.
And there are. Like, humans are divine, I believe. So if they're divine, then, like, our interpretation of things are going to be.
Well, let's say for the sake of the argument that we're
advanced.
not,
But there's also the argument of color blindness too. So that does work for humans.
But I only bring that up to say that there's clearly some evidence that there is things that we are unable to perceive. So who knows what else there is that we are unable to perceive that we can't even quantify in any reasonable way because our brains don't let us. So the universe is mental in the fact of that is how we see it.
That's that's my shit, bro. I'm trying to figure out how to.
Bro, don't know how to turn the volume down on this fucking laptop.
No, it ain't going. Oh yeah, you got those. Okay.
This guy, dude.
I'm looking for the thing on the toolbar, but where we just say?
I said about the fucking world and how it's mental. I don't fucking know how I believe they're unquantifiable things.
Yeah, I agree with with this more or less because of just the idea of infrared and ultraviolet and all these different rays, X-rays that they can make out that those are just the ones that are being revealed or known.
Yeah, there is things that we can detect that we know that we can't perceive with our own bodies. So who knows what else there is that we can't.
So I think it's just about being as in touch with whatever the closest thing to truth is for us. So for example, there's the things that are unseen like that are unidentifiable to us only through methods that we're acquiring now. But in our known world, known reality, where there is, I believe, objective fact, for example, the grass is green, the sky is blue, generally speaking. Yes, the grass does brown when it's dry or the sky does change.
But then there's the argument of who's to say your green isn't the same as mine or whatever the fuck.
Yeah,
brains don't.
I had an argument with not argument, but a little talk with the guy at work, before, somebody I know, my roommate or whoever is colorblind. So in his reality, the sky is purple or whatever instead of blue because they're the same. So whatever. And I'm like, okay, but you have to look at, in my opinion, what is the rule to the majority of people.
Don't look for the
exception.
There you go.
And if you follow that, then it's there really are objective facts, as well as the rest of these things are really supposed to be objective.
But then you can also, chalk it up to, well, the way in which human beings as a whole are set up to perceive things could be flawed, and that these aren't necessarily objectively factual.
I guess the thing that would make something very factual or provable would be if you can if it repeats over and over again. That's essentially science. If you can replicate something over and over, so it's I don't know. Yeah, there are certain events that will disrupt these cycles.
But then there's also just because we see this thing happening over and over again, who's to say? There's always a what if, and that's the problem.
Yeah. There could be it's just part of a much grander thing or something like that. What's happening now on the micro isn't necessarily the macro.
We could be missing the most important thing. But then, as the next rule here says, as above, so below. Well, then you would think that the things in the macro affect the micro and vice versa.
Yeah. I would think that. So I think that happens. You start. You start tyranny on a higher level, then the let's say government gets tyrannical, then the people are gonna get not tyrannical exactly, but they're gonna get rebellious against that. So bad breeds bad.
Everything
breeds good. Law of attraction almost. It's almost what it is, but it's different.
Well, shit, I'm just looking at this right here, and honestly, I feel like the example you gave is more of an example of polarity, in that there's never just going to be good. There's never just going to be evil. They can't exist without the other. You can't have light without shadow and shadow without light.
Right. Yeah.
So I feel like that's more so what you're saying there, and that I believe would correspond. I mean, as above, so below obviously talks about different planes and different fucking like it's sort of a religious thing, but even without, you take that religious aspect out of it, and there's still validity to the statement
Yeah.
of everything kind of affects everything. Um, and so back to the rule of polarity, what you were talking about, well, tyrannical, well, then people are going to want the opposite of that. And that's kind of why there's this cycle of history where, oh, a rebellion happens and there's like a republic and then it falls to a fucking dictator or something. It's like, it's ever changing.
Yeah, yeah, and it's constant. So,
Well, it's fucking the world balancing itself out,
yeah,
Star Wars is kind of like about that shit in a sense, but there's always going to be the two sides, and if one gets too powerful, the world will naturally balance itself back out.
yeah, I agree. I agree to that. Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, it's just like, it's the idea of like free market, basically, like if free world market, like, if you just let things be, then the world will work itself out. I agree to that. So I don't know. It's like as above, so below. To me, though, it kind of also means like uh, what's happening on a small scale is also happening on a larger scale, and what's happening on a larger scale is happening on a smaller scale. So, like, let's say you see, I don't know, a bunch of like terrible things happening on like a higher, like from
And then you justify to yourself, well, I'm not that level.
right, but it's the like
And
exactly
also,
like it just because you're not doing one thing doesn't mean that you're not. I mean, basically, it kind of sounds like we're all sinners, essentially.
well, it can taint your perspective, I feel like is what you're trying to say, of like if you see something extremely terrible going on, well, then things that are just kind of bad don't seem as bad in retrospect, or not in retrospect, in comparison to that.
Like desensitized a little
Yeah,
bit.
exactly. You become desensitized to whatever the fuck it is.
Yeah.
And it can be, you can be desensitized to very good things as well in that sense. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Like, if you're around bad shit, you'll take in bad shit. You're around good, healthy, positive shit, then you'll probably take that in too. It's like, and if you're around something that's just neutral and static or whatever, non like good or bad.
If you're around something that's too orderly, you could either become that or you could become the opposite. It's like,
yeah, it can go either way. Yeah.
I mean, as it says in this little Wikipedia page for the rules or whatever.
Yeah, wiki.
Yeah, bro. Just says the principle embodies the truth that there is always a correspondence between laws and phenomenon of various planes of being in life, whatever. But you could even take planes as rungs of society and whatnot too.
Yeah.
So there's correspondence. It doesn't mean necessarily that it's going to cause the opposite or it's going to cause the same thing. It's just whatever's happening on a macro level does affect what happens on a micro and vice versa. And I feel like it's kind of what our country was founded on, of like the people fucking voting and doing all that shit to affect the macro level.
Yeah, like it's supposed to be people in charge of micro and macro, but it kind of seems more like people have been left to be on the micro while the government takes the handle on the macro a little bit, but then like, or a lot of it rather, or it's not
the government always is the macro, the people are always the micro, but the power was supposed to be balanced between the two, of the micro essentially dictate the macro, and they were supposed to be one, but
it dissolved a little bit.
The government is now fucked.
They're shilling for corporations almost. That's essentially what it is. Like because like this is kind of, I was thinking about an analogy earlier. I don't know a great one, but like say you have like a pond, and then you're like, oh, there's only like two fish in there because they dominated the whole pond at this point. So like, like or like there's only two fish in there because like out of the first bunch we had, you know, they're the two big dogs, and you were like, let's add more fish. But then because those fish are like inferior from like the reset, the two dominant ones are just gonna like you're only gonna have so many that survive this essentially of these new fish, and like if they come together, then the result wasn't that you really like got as many fish as you want. You're still going to only have a couple dominant fish that survive, which is essentially like how corporations were or whatever. Like you got during the Industrial Revolution, the companies that like monopolize shit, and then they're like, okay, monopoly's bad. Like it hurts the people, hurts the economy, hurts
Yeah,
everything.
it hinders the possibility of a free market actually existing because there's no
There's no
competition.
freedom.
And that's what you need for a free market to work is competition. But if you get rid of competition, well, it's fucked. You can't
Right. You
can't
give
have
the
free
whole
market.
job to this one guy, and then if that guy does a bad job, guess who still has to do it? That one fucking guy. So
Right.
it's like it's counterproductive. And now what they have is like I don't know what if there's a term for it even, but it's just a couple companies now instead of one. You feel me? It's like a couple companies in each thing. Like let's say I don't even know. I should have done some more like corporatocracy research on this shit, but you know. With like food brands and stuff, like they'll all like there's like a few parent companies that own like dozens and dozens of brands, if not more. So
it's
it's
because
like
they buy out the competition, which
yeah, which if they do they have the right to do? They do,
yeah,
but does it end up becoming essentially this thing where instead of
it's not
one
a monopoly, but it is.
one giant company, yeah, that is a monopoly. It's just broken up between three or five or six giants that all get together and essentially meet and act as one company and coordinate with each other anyway. You know what I'm saying? Behind closed doors at a round table. So it's like yeah, it's basically just like a guise that like, oh, monopolies can't exist anymore, but like the effect is almost still happening
It's
where
not really a monopoly. If you were to say, all the businesses are run like a monarchy and a monopoly, it's more of how it is now. It's run like an oligarchy or some shit. It's like a fucking group of people type shit.
yeah. Yep, those and then they all have their own representative that will go be at that meeting that I just described, you know.
Yeah,
It's like
Illuminati.
yeah, essentially or I mean at least the workers for such. I mean they're moving the world
But what do you
forward.
do? What do you do to stop that? And is it necessarily a bad thing if what they're providing is a
Useful
net
thing?
positive? Like
Yeah,
how do you debate that? And not everybody's going to see the same net positive as a net positive.
Yeah, yeah. The only like thing that I could see to advocate for, which is more to the point of like what you just described, where you know you can put that like bad energy out there, but people are gonna self-regulate because at the end of the day, you know, the thing itself, like social media, whatever, is not bad, but like if it
We can debate if it's bad
but
social media as a whole.
but it's like people's intent with it rather
Yeah.
and and so if you just wean off of it or close your account for that app, close your account for this app, and like you've been doing, like I've done over time, then it's like you're literally at the very least, you know what I'm saying, empowering yourself to give them the finger essentially. Like why would I why would I be active giving you any kind of information, data collection,
Well, and yeah, it also
anything?
comes to, it's the power a lot of people I feel like don't realize they have, and it's going to suck at first if you want to start this. I hear this term get thrown around a lot, parallel economy. But like, if you want that to happen, yeah, you're going to have to pay a little bit more for your things at first.
Sacrifice a little bit.
But if it's for values you support, well, it's better for the long run. Like, for instance, Rumble as an example, are making a parallel to YouTube because YouTube's become this fucking juggernaut and they've been censoring speech and all this shit. So Rumble was like, yeah, we're going to not do all that bullshit. And going on Rumble, there's not as much content yet there. No creatives and all that. Just creators in general aren't uploading there as frequently, so there's less content. And Originally, like at first too, going on that because I went on there fairly early. I'd like to think, and just the interface was kind of shitty and all that
Yeah.
compared to it's definitely gotten a whole lot fucking better now. But you're gonna have to take some of those L's and those growing pains and shit. But uh, if it's for something you support, well,
Mm-hmm.
you have the right with your fucking dollar to do
Try
that.
to support
And
that, yeah.
yeah, so that's the only way to really fight that whole.
And there's the argument for
Old,
crypto.
well, where does
Ooh.
that come in with what?
That's the argument for that too. Like
How?
because like that's what they argue. They have the same like
What do they
right
argue?
to invest their money into
Oh, well,
what they
yeah.
believe will be a true alternate way of the future.
And as I said last night, and I have the right to fucking give into the Malaysian dong or whatever.
Right.
Or
Right.
I think it's Malaysian dong. It's some country down in the Philippine area.
The Ethiopian dong.
But you could invest in all of that and be like, oh, this is going to be the fucking next world currency, especially with fucking Biden inflation fucking crippling the fucking dollar right now.
Yeah, but if you ask him, dude, he's doing better than ever.
If you ask him, bro, fucking.
He doesn't know like what continent he's on and stuff like that.
Come on, man. Fucking every. But how the fuck can we even get to this? We're talking about as above, so below. What other notes you got? Are they all related to the
so
Kibelon, or are they?
Do we agree that a sober mind would interface the best with reality?
I mean, yeah, but then you'll have people arguing the oh, you don't actually see the world unless you're on like psychedelics or some shit.
Yeah, see, it's real interesting because this is kind of my understanding of that. I didn't even expect to talk about psychedelics, but like people that have done two things. Never have I heard of somebody having a profound experience off of mushrooms as a psychedelic drug, but I've heard it off of acid and I've heard it off of obviously DMT or ayahuasca, which is like, uh, I believe like, I guess I don't really believe anything. Like I don't want to say I like take these people's experiences, even though they have a hard time describing anything afterwards, like as the truth, but like, they say that once they experience these highs from these drugs, that you understand, quote unquote, that you're a part of something so much greater, et cetera, et cetera.
Have you ever done DMT?
No. So I'm not saying it's.
I have. So
not true.
Fucking.
I just have a theory on it, I guess.
So the first time I did it, I like had the actual like powder, whatever the fuck, smoked out of a pipe, and did not last very long. And I felt like there was something trying to reach out and talk to me, and it wanted to. I did it with fucking old homie that I fucking did a podcast with, and my girlfriend, and this thing was like, it felt like it was talking through me, trying to get their attention to share shit with them, and they were just clowning like the whole time, thought I was fucking with them, and by the time they kind of opened an ear to listen, the experience was ended.
Oh.
And then the other time,
but they were tripping too on it.
We took turns doing it essentially.
Oh, so were they before or after you?
I think I was the second to do it.
Okay, so
maybe it was the first. I'm not positive.
I was wondering, if they were out of it a little bit still, or if like they came back and they're good, or what?
Yeah, and then the other time I did it, it was just kind of like if you were to do something like acid or like fucking mushrooms, and at that time it was out of like a dad thing.
Okay.
And it was just kind of laying there in my homie's bed or whatever, listening to like, I think I asked him to put on Polyphia, and he just had some fucking YouTube video on that was like swirling colors or some shit.
Very dope.
And it was just like it was cool, but it was like, it wasn't some profound experience. And it was like, all right, yeah.
So what do you feel off of it then conclusively? Like
conclusively, I feel like I need to do it again the way I did it the first time instead of doing it through
do you
like
feel like you quote unquote like people call it knocking at the door or whatever, where you were like about to have your breakthrough experience almost?
I felt like there was some entity that was literally trying to communicate through me, that was reaching out. It sounds fucking weird, but I don't know how
No, I dig it. Yeah.
to explain it. That's what it felt like. And as I said, by the time I was finally able to get their attention and focus, it was like that the grip slipped, and that was it, and I could no longer communicate with them.
Okay.
Even though the visual shit kind of remained. It was weird.
And how long ago was that? Like a couple of years or so?
Yeah, it was, I want to say probably 2 years ago.
All right.
But
yeah, so people say like with these drugs that they interface with something that is almost indescribable, bigger than life, and all this. And I'm saying, okay, how earlier we were agreeing that maybe there's more that we can't perceive, right?
Yeah.
So like that's my kind of theory on that, is that not only that drug, but drugs in general kind of like open a gateway or alter your.
So
it literally does alter your brain chemistry if you ask like whatever.
Well, obviously that's
but maybe
why
that's like maybe that's what it like correlates with or something like that. Like it literally kind of gives you a skewed version, not version of reality, but it's skewing your view on what we said is like
it
normal
changes
reality.
how you perceive things.
Yeah, exactly.
So fuck, I don't know if there's a name to this.
How they do that individually may be different. Let's just put that there. Okay, go ahead.
So I don't know. There's probably a name to the theory, but it essentially boils down to like all around us. Like, okay, people who see like ghosts and shit, you're not actually seeing ghosts. You're seeing somebody from this other dimension or whatever. And when you do psychedelics and shit, depending on how it's whatever, it allows your brain to perceive this other dimension that's always around us, and there's other beings living there that maybe can or can't perceive us exactly, and that you're able to then communicate with them, and it's just like fucking. And then
kind of sensible, bro.
It harkens back to remember watching a video with Neil deGrasse Tyson like a long ass fucking time ago. I was probably in fucking high school still, and he was talking about like how ants can't perceive the third dimension, like because they see with their antennas or whatever, so they can only see essentially 2D. So like if you stack something up in front of them, they can't visibly see that as like a third dimensional object. It's just going until it's there, and it's like, what?
Yeah.
So perhaps there's beings that are all around us, like we're all around fucking ants and shit, that are fourth dimensional or whatever, fifth dimensional, fucking name a fucking number dimensional, that see us all the time, but they just kind of shrug off our existence because we are
the way we would do an ant or something even more insignificant. Yeah.
Because it's just like we are on a whole so many planes beneath this creature that it's just like they don't even look at us differently.
That would be like another example of as above, so below.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But then, well, how do we impact them? So how would it be as above, so below? Actually, how do our if they view us as so insignificant, then
no, just that the universe has that same order.
Oh yeah,
like
that it has rungs to it and whatever, tiered.
Like yeah, like even like what's happened on a tiny, small, well, perceivably to our where we stand, small level, is also happening on a human level too. So like yeah, it's pretty amazing. But like there's differences too. But like my main thing is that I do believe that perhaps these psychedelics can be allowing you to interface with like higher dimensions and stuff like that. I don't know if like in order to know that there are like that there's something greater or that there are those higher dimensions, to have like a belief or a faith in that, I don't think you do need those psychedelics. You know what I'm saying? It's just I'm not saying it's just an experience in the term of like trying to diminish it, but it's like it's literally an experience that you can either have or not have, but still understand that fact. Or
so
not
about
fact, but
I'm sure somebody else. I don't know the name of the fucking theory, but I'm sure somebody else has said this, but I can't recall. But perhaps even when you feel that spiritual presence or whatever, a vibe from somebody, if you will, that could be this other dimensional fucking feeling as well. Like,
yeah,
there's a lot that it could be, but how the fuck do we know?
right. Yeah, it's like that's the thing is like I feel like so much stuff. Obviously, like religions and stuff, they take a lot of like faith or like history and stuff, but it's it's more important in my opinion to understand right like the ideas rather than like who came up with them and shit like that or where they come from necessarily. I mean, where they come from is cool. It's good additional
But
information.
it doesn't really matter. It's like, look at the value of what this has to teach, not who fucking is teaching it.
It's like, you know, that's like a thing you see a lot too with different religions or practices is that like idolatry is like not a good thing, and I kind of agree with that idea that like you shouldn't really like idolize anybody, but I still believe in looking up to people, you know, like role model master, we've talked about this, but like, you know, really kind of worshiping somebody or wanting to be just like somebody.
Being envious.
Yeah, like that's like a disease almost. You got like a disease.
It's one of the 7 deadly sins, but it is like a fucking disease, and all the 7 deadly sins can corrupt you.
Interesting. 7 deadly sins, 7 hermetic principles.
Yeah, there's definitely a correlation with a lot of religions in the importance of 7, but in Christianity, there's the 7 deadly sins and also the 7 virtues, which are lesser known. In fact, I don't know them off the top of my head, but I do know that each of them, what the fuck? They are the opposite to the 7 deadly sins.
Okay, right.
So the 7 heavenly virtues, or whatever you want to call them. So the opposite to lust, chastity. I've never heard idolatry instead of envy, but it's actually put right here in what I'm looking at.
Idolatry?
Yeah, they changed some of there's different tellings because some of the 7 deadly sins, as I know them, are lust, gluttony, greed, sloth, envy, wrath, and pride. But then there's another set of them that is lust, idolatry, greed, discord, indulgence, wrath, and pride, which did not fucking know.
I wonder what discord entails. That's very interesting.
It's on Wikipedia. It's just a fucking red text and it says page does not exist, so it doesn't define what it means by discord. But the opposite to it is concord. But like discord, it's very vague. But as I know them, the opposites would be lust, obviously chastity, gluttony. The opposite is temperance, greed, chastity, or charity, not chastity. Sloth is diligence. I don't see how that's the opposite, but okay. Envy is kindness.
What is sloth? Does that mean like
sloth
lazy?
Is like, yeah, exactly, pretty much.
So diligence is like doing stuff. The way I think about that. So it's like,
oh yeah, okay,
you know what I'm saying? Yeah.
Carefulness and persistent effort or work. So yeah, okay, I guess.
All right.
But the opposite of envy is kindness.
Yeah, like, and it's very tricky, like how quick that coin can flip, like, or not even that, how like one can look like the other type of thing.
So the opposite, in the telling of it being idolatry, the opposite is faith. Well, what's your thoughts on that? Because I feel like it could definitely be argued that they are one and the same, as faith is idolizing a god, if you will. And the virtues, in a sense, would even be something you idolize.
Yeah, like I would say that so how could we argue that like faith and idolatry are two opposite sides of the same coin? Can that be argued? Put it that way. Like, I don't think they are two opposite sides. I think you're right, because in order to have faith, you need to have like basically faith is almost, you can identify it as unreasonable belief in something. Like that's what faith is. Like it's not quite reasonable. It's just it can be intuitive, but not necessarily reasonable. Do you agree or no? Is it reasonable?
I think it depends. I feel like perhaps idolatry is what it's meaning is that blind, kind
blind,
of
yeah.
blind faith, or that extremely zealous, I guess, version of it. Um, but I don't know if it means, you know, like would it be considered the sin of idolatry if you idolize God?
Right, exactly.
But I feel like maybe not, because you're not supposed to idolize God. You're supposed to, be thankful to him and whatever, but you're not supposed to want to be God. And that's sort of the folly of Satan. So,
Right, right. So it teaches that lesson with that. So it's like I think that they I think that faith is is reasonable, but it needs to. Oh, it's hard to put because it's almost you're saying the same thing. I'm saying the same thing in itself. Like faith has to be reasonable if it, or no, sorry, faith is reasonable if it makes sense. Like if it makes sense, then yes, like obviously you've reasoned that that's a good faith, but one could argue that what is it based on? Like your faith in something that you cannot quote unquote prove exists, then why, like that's an unreasonable faith. But if it's your intuition,
but faith, you're supposed to, you know, that I remember always talking with our fucking homie from high school, who raps now. He split GTA with him. I think you know what I'm talking about. And asking for evidence because I was super fucking secularist or whatever the fuck at the time. And wanted to know, like, I wanted proof, and I was like, and he would always say, "That's Catholicism, all that. You need to have faith. God's not going to give you every fucking all this peace. He's not going to come down from the heavens and be like, here I am."
which
Because
is
then everyone,
which is like some people legitimately think like if he can't do that, then I will have no faith. Like people are so naive that they'll be like, if that God ain't coming down from the sky, I'm not believing in him.
and the idea was he would always just re-say essentially that you need to have faith. He's not going to give you all the fucking proof.
You know what it is?
He's going to give you
in my opinion, like it's the intelligent design of the world, of the order that we were just talking about with like how ants and humans are exhibiting the same order and stuff like this, that like the water in the way that a fire will naturally occur with the forest burning and stuff like this. Like I don't know if these current ones are natural. Well, that's another thing.
Well, forest fires do naturally happen from like lightning and shit.
And like volcanic stuff and whatever. So it's very weird how there is this order that you can just easily overlook. And I would say, I don't know about ancient times or past times, but in modern times it's easy to overlook the order because we're just in these concrete jungles all day. So it's like,
so do you think God is the embodiment of full order? Because I've definitely heard arguments of God is order, Satan is chaos, and I feel that's the perception most people have.
I think that there's an idea to that. Like there's like something to that. Like there's weight to it. Like there's a chaotic principle, and then there's a creator principle, or like a creator, a dominant creator.
So what I'm asking now, do you think that God is just the embodiment of order?
See, this is what I think. I think that there's like the dominant creator force, and then the chaotic force. But I want to know who's responsible for the both of them.
So I don't know if it says anywhere in the actual Bible or anything of some of the imagery, but 12 Rules for Life, Jordan Peterson talks about sort of his belief in, what the cross represents, and how God is the embodiment of both order and chaos, sort of like yin and yang, if you were to take the Taoist perspective. He is absolute order and he is absolute chaos. And what the cross is to represent is, well, God is technically at the middle or whatever, the intersection of both order and chaos.
Which I could understand this like model as well. Like this is a good model. Like it's just that is the way it's popularly presented, even in like not just Abrahamic stuff, like it just even in mythologies, like there's like they're like different deities, I guess you would say.
To represent each different thing. Whereas the way he kind of goes about it and saying, at least what I can remember, was that, you know, God is both order and chaos, which is another reason why I lean towards the I'm more a fan of Judaism. I think I talked about this with you before, and how Old Testament God is a lot more harsh. And it's because like he is order and he is chaos. It's like he is the scale that keeps everything in balance. If you were to weigh it too far, as we were talking about earlier, if order's too high, chaos will inevitably ensue. You know, if you're too comfortable in your little bubble, well, eventually fucking chaos is going to come knocking and your house is going to burn the fuck down and you're going to have no bubble and you're going to be fucked. But if you're too far in chaos, you don't know what's going to happen. You're going to always be on edge, and eventually order will have to come or everything will fall.
Right. Yeah. In other words, it'll work itself out.
Exactly. And to that point is God is working it out.
Yeah. And I do put like, it's a weird thing that I kind of like thought about maybe, I don't know, 2 or 3 years ago now. Like, okay. Do you think that bad stuff, let's start with this. Do you think that bad stuff is like what we perceive as like bad stuff, I guess like war or famine, stuff like this, bro, you know, terrible things. Is that like God's will too? Is that like, or are these like, in your opinion, like earthly forces or dark forces that are like doing this that we have to essentially fight, like with, you know, the faith of God and shit like that?
So yeah, God will put us through trials and tribulations and shit, but they're things that we can overcome. And it might not always make sense to us why, you know, he might kill people around us or whatever and take the lives of those and make us go through these struggles. But there is a reason. It may not always be apparent, but no matter what, everything will work itself out as long as you have faith.
Yeah.
And even if, you know, there's not a God, all that shit, it's like that idea alone is comforting and it'll help you get through a lot of the most difficult parts of your life. And that's why faith has existed for so long.
Even that is paradoxical though, because like you have to have faith that there's nothing too.
Yeah.
Right? So it's like, that reminds me of something a teacher told me, you know, senior year, like talking about religion and stuff. I may have mentioned this to you, where he's like, basically, well, what do you have to lose by having faith? And I'm like, well, nobody's ever really put it to me in that simple of a way.
Well, like, if you have faith in the wrong fucking religion, you're fucked. You're going to a different hell, whatever it might be. You're going to Tartarus, bro.
Yeah, he was I think just Christian, regular, like general Christian, but he was like, you know, what do you have to lose by? And he was not, you know, a preachy dude or nothing. Nobody even knew what he was or nothing. He actually wore the Rasta, like a Rasta bracelet.
Yeah, you did tell me about that.
Yeah. And I'm like, okay, what are you? But,
what are you?
You like lighten up or what? But no, it kind of like not opened my eyes. I already like, it just kind of like it was the first time that somebody like ever even like said something about faith to me, like, you know, like, well, think about it. What do you get if you believe there's nothing after? And I'm like, nothing. And then he's like, well, what do you, or he's like, and then if you do believe that there's nothing, then imagine, you know, if what they believe in is true, what will happen? And I'm like, oh yeah, like I get what you're saying. So like, but he's like, but don't look into it, you know, like he wasn't saying like, you know, convert or nothing, but It's interesting. It's like faith is I believe essential because like I think there's little doses of faith all throughout our day.
Define what you mean by it's essential.
Like it's part of our spirit. I feel like our soul.
What do you say to those who say we don't have a spirit, we don't have a soul? What would you say to people like that?
You're broken.
You're broken.
You're broken. Your antenna's broken. That like define I don't know, define love. Like if you think it's all just like a chemical thingy-majingy, like a reaction, I guess, a chemical reaction because we just happen to be like poofed into existence and like eventually we're poofing out of here.
No, according to everything, evolutionarily speaking and scientifically shit, it's like the thought of monogamy makes no fucking sense. And the fact that that is a thing and love is a thing and it's not just lust and whatever, it's like it adds validity to there being something.
Yeah, and there is like a very weird like not longing, I wouldn't say maybe, but a deep want for that like that trinity or that like divine unity between you, a partner, and a child. Like I believe that that's like if you don't want that, then that's okay if you don't want it, but like that only makes sense to me to want that. Like
well, supposedly
it's like almost like the most beautiful thing.
Yeah, like I don't understand how like
incomplete
dads could just it's a thing, but dads leaving
jump ship and stuff. Yeah,
but apparently evolutionarily speaking, that's kind of the route it is that we're supposed to take because men, we don't necessarily have that caring nature. That's kind of what women are supposed to be, more caring and nurturing. So why is it that we stick around? And obviously, it's the best thing for the child. You need a mother and a father.
It's a part of that trinity almost. Like if you just take a part of that away, it's like that will cause at least some sort of instability.
Exactly, and it's like, why is that exactly? And I mean,
can you get by without that trinity? You can get by without it, but is there?
But you will never be fully whole.
Yeah,
and
is there an effect on it?
It's not that you never will be, but it's going to be a lot more difficult for you to get there.
You're missing an essential piece of the puzzle, man. Like that's almost what it is. I mean, I even have experienced this with like different aspects of my life, just like wanting that trinity, and I feel like that's almost any dude that wants a relationship. Essentially, you might not want to get right into marriage, kids, etc., but like you want a mate.
So you could also equate this, especially nowadays, why people would want a mate is because evolutionarily speaking, we're a social creature and people are very isolated these days. And there's been some studies, I don't fucking have them up and I don't even really know exactly what to look. It'd be a lot of fucking shit, so I'm not gonna do it right now. But there's been some studies I've heard about, take everything I'm saying with a grain of salt, that it's extremely beneficial for people like to have human touch. It does actually have a outcome on the amount of dopamine your body will produce, and fucking that can be the touch of like a lover and fucking holding hands, kissing, cuddling, whatever the fuck that shit. It could be even with a friend to like be wrestling and shit too. That kind of stuff. Just physical touch of another human is.
Yeah, or what do you think a fucking handshake is, right? A handshake, a hug every time. Yeah.
Yeah, it helps establish connection because you're trusting enough to make that contact, I guess. And that's something lacking.
Well, it's even like crazier too because we're literally, bro, it's like actually crazy. Like my mind just like melts when I think about this shit that we're like electric, like we have electricity pulsing through us, bro. And then like our blood is like made up of two things. What? Water and plasma. Plasma, dog. Like we got fucking we're plasma beings, bro.
Is it plasma as I feel like it's a different type of plasma because when I think of plasma, I think of like
the shit that
gas
the
burning
sun is made out of type shit.
But like it doesn't plasma like that have to be burning at a certain, or have to be a certain, yeah, like the element of plasma. Like I don't think it's technically the elements, but I could be wrong.
But see, that's what I'm saying. Even if it's not, it's like they must have did that for a reason. Like there must be some reason that they're saying that we all are these plasma beings. Like it's really interesting. So like when you think about the fact that we're like water, electric, plasma beings just like walking around connecting with each other, that shit's like that's divine in and of itself, bro. Like that's crazy. Like but then again, that's like almost the thing that I was just arguing against, where it's like we're not just this chemical composition of nature, blah blah blah. There's like, which it could be that too. It's just that there's more to it than just that. Like, sure, you figured out what the fuck we're constructed out of, but like, don't you realize how crazy that is? Like that we're fucking intelligent like the way that we are. Like, I mean, not me, I'm dumb as shit, but you know.
So I was trying to listen to you while like skimming this.
Yeah.
But so there is a difference with plasma, and the reason that plasma, like sun, ionized gas, is called that is because the dude who first like created it, he used the analogy of blood, with the ions being the corpulus. I can't fucking pronounce this word. Corpuluses, and the remaining gas being a clear liquid, and named the ionized state of a gas plasma, and thus the names just prevailed.
So he thought it looked like blood.
No, he used the analogy of how it is created because it's similar
to blood.
He just kind of used the analogy of how plasma is made. Like if you were to say, fuck man, what's a good example? How things come together. I don't know. Fucking,
Yeah.
They work in a manner that you could just sub these words out and it explains the same process. So it's like,
Yeah.
that comes all the way back to, I believe it was one of these 7 fucking things. Would it be of rhythm? Everything flows out. And
Yeah, that's rhythm. Oh yeah.
Fuck yeah. But fucking A.
So here's a good question. Is our society
we live in a society.
is our society essentially, at least for the people that are not born into prosperity, is it essentially like a trauma factory or a trauma field for them to like get through, or does that not exist and that's like for each individual to determine? What would you think?
Let's say, God has a will, has a way.
Mm-hmm.
And he'll never give us trials, tribulations that we are not capable of overcoming. Just because you come from nothing doesn't mean, like, that's sort of the entire idea behind fucking Christ himself. Like, people don't really think of it,
He wasn't
at the
noble
time.
and shit.
Yeah, he was a fucking nobody when he was alive type shit. He wasn't like a celebrity. Everyone was like, oh shit, it's fucking the safe. It was like,
who's dude?
Right, exactly. He was a fucking nobody, but of extreme importance, and that's kind of
the message.
Yeah. Same. I mean, that's the fucking hero's journey in a nutshell. Of you come from fucking nothing. Boy starts out on a farm. You're called to adventure. Normally, you're going to decline it because you're like, nah, fuck that. And eventually, life forces you into it. And throughout it, you have to learn difficult
people,
fucking
new stuff.
You have to learn a lot of difficult decisions. A lot of the time too, you'll learn something, but its value will not become apparent until you need to use it.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, there's a reason that's such a huge storytelling trope.
Right, because it's real.
Yeah, exactly. Like because it's how life fucking is.
And that was my next part, was that well, actually the next part was, could this be done on purpose in order to essentially, I mean, I'll just put it the boldest way, like to mitigate a savior.
What do you mean done on purpose?
Like, are things essentially like, is our society like, okay, call it a free market if you want, the way that it's set up, semi-free market, where things like Pornhub, OnlyFans, social media, the way that people are, uh, it doesn't affect people's mental health very well. Like the way that all these things are available to us, you know, is it likely that people don't like aren't thinking about what long-term effects that this will have on the population, or is it likely that some people somewhere that do have something to do about it are thinking about the long-term effects of it and they don't care because if people's lives are negatively impacted, and this goes deeper than like just the stuff that I named. Those are just like what I could think of. But like obviously with like poor neighborhoods, hoods, all this stuff, it's like that's a different topic. But like similar because it combines into
Are you
like
saying that it's done on purpose to put certain people at
at a
that lower
disadvantage
point?
or something like that. Yeah.
Done on purpose by who?
Whoever enables it. I mean, essentially it's the free market that enables it because it's like if people don't validate it, then it would just go away. But I guess it depends if these things are funded by people with like giant amounts of money that like essentially prop them up or something like that, which they have the right to do.
Okay, well, you're getting lost in the weeds here a bit. I feel
Yeah,
like
I'm thinking
to
far.
to address the first point of is it fabricated? Well, we talked previously about John Milton's Paradise Lost,
Yeah,
and one of the core things about that is Satan and his demons. They decide they're going to wage essentially a proxy war, a fucking Cold War, or whatever you want to call it, um, with God. And instead of charging the gates of heaven and being like, "Yo, we're taking this shit," instead they wanted to corrupt his new favor being man, and that's the whole idea of sin and all that shit.
yeah. So would you're
So
yeah.
so the idea is that sin is placed whatever the fuck, and it's going to draw us, and it's going to because it gives us that instant gratification, but it doesn't.
That's what I'm saying.
It
Like,
doesn't help you grow towards anything, and it is those holes in the grass, whatever the fuck, that you're gonna fall into.
yeah, yeah.
And
And I feel like that, especially in the internet era for the past decade, especially, like, bro, it's so abundant for those like holes to be around you. But
so
you have to be responsible to not fall in them, I know, but like do people have that control or not? It's hard to say.
I say people do have that control, and they have the ability to step around them, but you have to be aware of the consequences
Yeah.
if you fall into them. And even if you do fall into them, you do have the ability to get yourself out of that,
Yeah,
pick yourself back
exactly.
up.
Exactly. See, and
It's going to be more difficult,
that's a
but
big thing too, that like just because you had you know pitfalls in the past, bro, doesn't define you, like
yeah.
I was just watching some podcasts that I forget the name of even, but it was these models were on there, these OnlyFans girls, bro, and they were like, well, like because this dude was roasting them for what they're currently like quote unquote demoralizing themselves for doing, etc. And they're like, dude, 4 years ago you were doing similar stuff. Like, how could you even like be a hypocrite like
What do
that?
you mean?
Like they were saying the dude that was like grilling them on the show did the same type of thing. Like
Oh,
like his girlfriend was into like swinger parties or something like
but
that.
yeah,
Okay, so like it's like completely
yeah.
different.
I feel like
Or like he's reformed rather.
yeah, where you're going with that is like just because you did something in the past and you've since grown from your mistakes, that doesn't justify like people want to bring that shit up. It's like, oh,
Hmm.
you're talking to me. Well, you did this 5 years ago. It's like, okay, notice how I'm not doing it now. That's because I've learned what I was doing was wrong, and I'm coming to you and trying to help you from somebody that's further down this path,
Yeah.
and
Or that's like
wishing I had somebody to help me realize this wrong
right.
when I was that low. Because you need to come to that realization before the first part of
Yeah.
recovery is accepting you have a problem.
Yeah. And that sounds just a lot like the cave situation again, right? Where you're trying to bring someone into the light and they they don't want it. They want to stay where they're
in a
at.
cozy little cave. Yeah.
In the dark, man. Like they just, it's more comfortable there, bro. You don't gotta understand everything
And that's the
around
thing.
you.
It seems more comfortable in sin. It's not fun, you know. And this is something too that's helped me because I was applying for disability and shit because I have severe depression, ADHD,
Yeah,
and my anxiety. And honestly, something that's been helping me get over it is just it's not fucking. You got to look at it. It's not fun to fucking work all the time. Like it takes a lot fucking out of you.
yeah,
Um, hell, even doing some of the shit for setting this up, it's like it's work, but long term, you got to look at the benefits and well, do you want what the fuck you're shooting for? You can have all these short term fixes, but nothing gets done long term. You can fucking sit in your fucking room, playing video games, smoking weed, fucking on Pornhub all fucking day. You're not going to accomplish shit. And it's like, yeah,
well,
you're getting those quick dopamine fixes. Yeah, sure, it feels good in the moment, but
it's just here's my thing. Like this is what I've run into, right? Like, can you go to bed every night thinking about that, or like knowing that that's what you did for the day, that's what you were capable of, that you know what I'm saying? It's like what
and
you
that's
were
the thing is
saying.
you just gotta keep doing those things because
Yeah,
the guilt of it sucks. So you just do it more because then you get that dopamine fix, and then you don't care about the guilt for that short time. And it's
yeah,
like you're digging yourself deeper in that hole, though.
right. Yeah, you got. I mean, this sounds super stupid or like easy, like simplified, right? But it is true. Like you have to get into whatever you're trying to do the way, like to the point where like you're as fluid as like changing your clothes or putting it on your shoes. Like you want it to feel like that or something
But
like
even
that.
even that, it's like I'd go through stages of depression where I wouldn't fucking I'd wear the same clothes for like days,
Oh
for like
yeah,
a
I know
week,
what you're
and it's
saying.
like that's difficult too. But you need to take those fucking steps. It's like
Right.
sometimes
You
there's
got to
small
start
things,
with
but
cleaning your room.
yeah, exactly, bro. You got to have your room clean. You got to have your room in order. It sounds fucking easy, but then when you try to fucking do it, it's like, oh wow, I'd rather be getting high and playing fucking Call of Duty.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
like,
Well, yeah, and like that. Here's the thing. Like when I try to bring that up to people in the past, like, okay, can you go to bed every night thinking about the fact that like you aspire to do that, but you know, upon even talking about it, breaking it down, figuring out what steps we could take, you still just like don't want to do that? Fuck no, that sounds terrible, right? Let's like whatever you want to call it, pick yourself up by the bootstraps, or get yourself going, get the ball rolling, and like take at least a small step to build something for yourself in a direction you want to go. And then when people don't want to do that, or like they're like, yeah, that's motivating, dude, but then like there's no follow up, it's like that's kind of crazy. Like I'm even guilty of this myself because I always like think, oh, I would love to have people to do this with, but like at the end of the day, you really gotta want to do it yourself,
yeah.
right? You as the individual, you have to just
And you can set all these excuses of why you're not doing it, but we all know why you're not doing it. And deep down why you're not doing the thing.
you just don't want it bad enough.
Yeah,
Like it's
exactly.
pretty much it because like and yes, you can be like you can use the excuse like, oh, I work 40 hours. Oh, like I work really hard. Oh, like I'm tired and like I don't have time in the day and stuff like that. But like with what you're given, you have to work with that. You have to work with it. Like if you got, I don't know, 4 hours of free time a day, 5 hours of free time a day, you have to figure out how you can at least give a little bit of time to what you're trying to do. You know what I'm saying? And
Yeah.
like but some people, as of what my initial point was, I forgot, but now I remember. They have like a reaction to that. Again, it's the fucking cave analogy, but they have that reaction where they're like, they think not only do they not want to do that, but they think you're trying to manipulate them to like
Yeah,
not be a piece of shit or something like that.
no,
Even
that's
though
a
you're
big
not
thing.
trying to tell them that.
That's a big thing, and I can speak from personal experience. It's like you feel like people are trying to tell you how to live, and it's like, no, they just want you to be doing better because they can see, and deep down inside that you are capable of more. Because clearly
Yeah.
a lot of the time too, it's like, talk about, oh, I want to do this, but fuck that butt. You need to just, it's like,
yeah,
no homo. But
as soon as you say that, it's like the whole thing before is out the window.
Exactly. It's like, but this, okay, well, why is this a problem? Okay, you break it down. Well, you see why it's a problem. So tackle that. Make that not a fucking problem anymore. Like, we didn't have a fucking space. We're doing it in my fucking living room right now. Move shit aside.
Right.
We figured shit out. Yeah, exactly. It's like, if you want something, you're gonna fucking get it. And that's all there is to it. We've been going for a good minute here. I think we should probably cut this off here. Plus, I kind of think that mic died on you. But that's why we got the backups going. Thank you for tuning in. This has been The Mind, or
a bunch of different random stuff.
Yeah, or the 7 principles, whatever. I feel like it's kind of a good tying thing. I feel like a lot of things came back to that.
Yeah.
Thank you for supporting us. We love you all.
Love you.